But I've worked on Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Like, I think of Coca-Cola and I have these really fond feelings about the original glass bottle, sitting outside a cold pub with the stripy straw and the fizz and the taste. I don't have that at all with Pepsi.
Hello team and welcome to the pod. It's me, yes, James Martin, on the Entrepreneur's Conversation. And today we have got Sara Kelly, all things branding, from Coca-Cola right the way through to thunderbolts of lightning that interrupted her life to have a big change on how she perceived what she did and who she did it with in the world of advertising and branding. Sara, welcome.
Hi.
Welcome to the boutique. We're here in the salon. We like it here, don't we, Ollie?
We do.
We use the salon here because we're smuggled away from the rest of the team, and it's nice and quiet, so it's good. What is a brand? Tell us. How do we define a brand?
Oh, how do we define a brand? That's a big question to start with. I always use a really crude example, but I've worked on Pepsi and Coca-Cola, which in blind taste testing, they're actually the same products. You know, very similar. People can't distinguish between the two. But if you think about those brands, you have very different associations with Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Like, I think of Coca-Cola and I have these really fond feelings about the original glass bottle, sitting outside a cold pub with the stripy straw and the fizz and the taste. I don't have that at all with Pepsi. All of that is intrinsic to the brand, and it's been created and crafted over many years, and those feelings and associations and those emotional connections. I mean, if you can create that emotional connection, that's the best. And Pepsi have got that, but they're not necessarily appealing to me. And there will be people who have that fondness for Pepsi, but mine is a Coca-Cola brand.
That's a very good example to explain it to the listeners and viewers of the pod here. I think it's almost like a promise, isn't it? Sometimes a brand.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
You need to hook into why you're going to pay more money for something because it's got that brand promise on it that it's always going to deliver.
Yeah, and that takes a lot of work and a lot of understanding and research, and constant research and constant evolving. But also staying true to what you are and what your product is and what people love about it. And really looking at those consumer insights as well and audience insights and thinking about what is it about that brand and how it sits within their lives and like those moments and hooking onto those moments and really then building your marketing plan around that and your brand.
You're now doing this on your own, aren't you, independently?
Yeah, so almost, I think 10 years it will be 10 years in September I've been doing it on my own. I have gone back and done some freelance stints at design agencies too, so I keep my hand in a bit like that. But yeah, I've really enjoyed. I stepped away from agencies back in 2010 when I had my first baby. And I just started, worked on one project for a friend. She was just looking for some help with her new startup. She was creating a baby wear brand, and she just needed a bit of help to form like a bit of a plan as to what her brand stood for, who she should be marketing to, how she's going to market it. And I was like, I can help you with that. Let's do that. And she was like, what? Why don't you just do this? Why are you going to go back to design agency world post babies? And and it just sort of evolved from there. And one project led to the other, recommendations, networking. And that's how I've developed my business.
And there's history in the family, isn't there, here?
Yes,
because
yes.
I actually know your dad,
yes.
And that's why we've got you, we were able to cajole you to come in via the family friends. But your husband is involved in advertising as well, isn't he?
So I first did my first stint of work experience with my dad's agency, which was Ziggurat Brands, back, I think, when I was 14 years old.
Wow.
And even like growing up, he was always traveling the world, working on really glamorous brands. It was a bit Mad Men-esque back then. And and I was kind of hooked on that sort of that world and excited by it. So when I turned 14, got the opportunity to do my work experience, went straight into Ziggurat, and the designers sort of took me under their wings, and I was making mock-ups for like Heinz baked beans and Kingsmill bread and things like that. And and I was like, how am I going to get into this? And then I didn't really take a straightforward path to get into it. I was supposed to do a foundation course in art after school, and I had my place. And I just started working over the summer holidays, and I was like, actually, I quite like earning money. I don't want to go to university. And maybe, I don't know if that was the right or wrong decision, because it didn't make my path straightforward then to getting into design. I worked in publishing sales for a long stint of time. did a few other jobs. And then my dad just said, look, we need an office junior. He, at this time, started up a new design agency called Nude, who are very successful now as well. And he said, you know, we could do some office junior support. Do you want to come in? And this could be your opportunity. Yeah. And I was like, right, I'm there, took a pay cut, went in and worked my way up. And like my dad said, before me, even though he hasn't got a degree himself, he said he never would have employed someone who didn't have a degree in sort of marketing. And he said, you sort of proved me wrong. You don't, like, you know, a lot of it's just common sense.
Don't you think, Sarah, it's very different now when we're headhunting for people and stuff, the whole degree thing is kind of slid on the back foot with it. We're looking for team players.
Yeah, I guess unless you're a doctor.
Experienced. You know. Doctor would definitely help with a degree. But, you know, I do think that is, you know, we're looking for people that can really join in with what we do and have got knowledge and experience. Yeah. And then if you go back to those early days, was the entrepreneur in you then to break away from stuff, or did you like that being in amongst the big team?
I quite liked it. Was fun. Yeah. Design agency world was fun. Yeah. I mean, like if you think of like that Mad Men world, other than not necessarily drinking whiskey in the office, we were certain everyone was going to the pub and drinking a lot of whiskey. And it was fun times. You know, lots of fun. Really great team. Being around lots of creative people. Yeah, I had a blast. And then, you know, once you've had kids, unfortunately, you can't do as much of the fun stuff and it becomes quite a slog. Yeah. And, you know, and it's a work hard environment. It is a slog. And that's when it started to feel like this isn't necessarily what I wanted to do. And I think I did think, you know, maybe one day I'll have my own design agency and I'll work right up the ranks to top and then maybe set up my own design agency. But actually, I don't know if I don't know if I necessarily want my own design agency or branding agency. I like working for myself. I like earning money for myself and doing great projects and getting the reward from that. But I don't know if I need a design agency to do that.
But you, I mean, listen, we're going to touch on this, that you've gone through the mill with some health issues. Yes. And I think that definitely has coloured your attitude, hasn't it?
500,000%, you know.
You know, I want to do stuff that I want to do, as opposed, because you had some bad cancer that was you went through.
Yeah, so it's 2023. It's funny because it turns into a bit of a fog of distant, blurry memories.
Well,
maybe that's a
bit
bit
of trauma. You're trying to forget it.
Yeah, maybe. A bit of trauma, trying to forget it. But 2023, I found a lump in my breast and I went and had it checked out. I felt immediately like, I'm not sure about this. And I was quite vigilant of checking because my mum had breast cancer. Yeah. She died not of breast cancer, but another type of cancer she got 10 years later. And I was always really, really scared of cancer. I had health anxiety. So I was always checking, or I felt like it was going to happen at some stage in my life. I just was quite anxious. And I've had therapy for that. I had CBT therapy to sort of address my health anxiety. But still, I was quite vigilant of checking because I knew there was a chance potentially I could have it because my mum had it. And maybe that was health anxiety, thinking that I did have it immediately when I found that lump, but it turned out that it was a grade 3. It was a small, I found it early, obviously, because I was vigilant. And I went straight in for a mastectomy and then I had a reconstruction and had radiotherapy. Fortunately, I managed to avoid having chemotherapy. Not that, you know, if I needed it, then that was what I was going to do. But I had an opinion from the Marsden and they said, you know, we can do this type of treatment instead. And so I was under care of the Royal Marsden and I'm still under care of the Royal Marsden. I'm taking preventative treatment to stop the cancer, that grade 3 cancer coming back. And then a year later, I went for a checkup with my breast consultant. And I went into her office and it was like a month before I was due to have my first annual mammogram. And I think I was there about, I can't actually remember what I was there about, but she just said, look, I can do your first mammogram now. And I was like, but that's not until next month. She said, no, we can just do it now. It's fine. You're here. Wow. And I went back, went in for the mammogram and, you know, you just can tell. Like I had the mammogram done first, then because I'm a private patient, very fortunately to have private healthcare, they do an ultrasound as well. So didn't find anything on the mammogram. On the ultrasound, they found something just behind my nipple on my other breast. and it was very small. And you can tell that's the worst thing, is the biopsies and just that it's a very scary time. And they found a very early grade 1, which was not linked at all to the previous one. So apparently that puts me in 2% of women, my breast consultant told me, who get that type of new primary not linked to the previous. And within a year. So I then chose to have another mastectomy. I had the reconstructed breast. So I had an implant in the reconstructed breast, had that removed because it had been damaged by radiotherapy. And I just actually opted to go completely flat and not bother with breasts. I've just had my fill and I'm done.
That is a lot of stuff to go through, isn't it?
So that's a bit of a story.
That is. And that's where I was alluding to, that has changed your attitude to who you want to work for and what morally you want to do and stuff like that. So tell us, because you've shifted with some of your client base, hasn't it? Yeah,
for sure. And it's going through that. You go to it's a dark place. There's some really hard times. It's really upsetting. The waiting, the treatment, and everything else was horrendous. But I've said quite openly, I am changed by this experience. I feel stronger. I feel more positive. I've made new friends or stronger connections with friends. The support you get from you find out who your friends are, and that's been an incredible part of it. But also just appreciating life. And there's a quote which I love from the author Matt Haig, and he says, "Every patch of darkness glimmers with unseen hope."
Oh wow! I like that. That's really good.
And I cling on to that. And I definitely I have found the hope, and it's been incredible, really. And I feel stronger and more passionate about the brands I want to work with. I don't, if Coca-Cola came to me with a project tomorrow, I don't know what I'd say. Yeah, exactly. But I'd love to. I want to work with brands who do meaningful work, and I want to do more of that type of work and give something back to that community as well.
Those quotes, Sarah, I do like them, and I cherish them. Those quotes like that. And I listened to Richard E. Grant's book, Pocket Full of Happiness. And he wrote that book when his wife passed away. Yes. And that quote, "a pocket full of happiness every day," is something that his wife said that, she said, you must do that every day to keep everything going for yourself. And it just is. I use it every day. I do find that is a great book. It's really good. And on Audible, he's a very good narrator. He's got a great voice, isn't he? He's
just giggly. And he's just a joy. He's found the joy through the dark as well. Yeah.
And so when you're looking at a client, you must almost have to be a business analyst as much as you are looking at the artistic vibe to what you're going to do for them, because you need to understand their business as well.
And I think I've been really lucky that some projects have just sort of landed on my lap almost through network and connections. And I haven't had to do too much cold calling or chasing down work. But if I am trying to approach, I look for opportunities where I see brands who, are growing or they're starting to scale, but there's something not quite right, that I can see, I can see where maybe it's creatively or some part of their messaging just doesn't feel like it's fully resonating. I'm not going to necessarily talk to brands who are doing it all wrong, because that's too much of a challenge, but you can see there's an opportunity. If you just made that a bit better, or if you did that, it'd be perfect. So those are my favorite sort of projects to take on. And then, I've been doing, since I've had breast cancer, I've been working with Flat Friends UK, who are a charity who support women who choose not to have reconstruction. So I've helped them with their brand strategy, and we're working on their brand identity at the minute, which would be lovely to do. So it'd be nice to refresh for them.
And how do you find the motivation with the story that you've just told us? And the audience, I'm sure, will resonate with the pain and trauma that you've had to go through. How do you find that energy to do it? Because you're solo, you're on your own, you haven't got a team, have you? You're doing it. I mean, I'm sure you reach out to to copywriters and other stuff if you need it. But you're do it. You get up in the morning, you do your stuff. Walk us through like a typical day of what you get up to.
Dog walk to start the day,
and that's good. I walk most mornings. The walk is a very good thing, isn't it?
It is, and I love outdoor swimming. So actually, that's probably a passion I've found over the last few years.
Is this, Sarah? Is this cold swimming?
Yes.
Stuff? Oh, sod off!
I love it.
No, I went to a place and all the women were doing it. Oh, they've got these big Kagoo coats and stuff. And they're freezing.
Yeah, I don't wear the coat anywhere else other than there, though. By the way.
Okay. You do see people down the shop with the coat on.
Yeah, no, I don't. I discovered that a few years ago. I've got two friends who were doing it through the whole way through the winter. Crazy girls and great fun.
And what is it meant to do?
Oh, it's just an endorphin, cortisol. It's just amazing. Not
Oliver?
cortisol, dopamine hit.
Would you do it?
I'd probably try it. Yeah.
Yeah.
My auntie does it in the river in Chelmsford.
Yeah, that's where I go as well.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
Right.
It's either river, coast.
No, thank you.
I mean, you don't open your mouth too much. Don't
swallow
any
water.
We swim in the Chelmer. We'll swim on the coast, try and catch a tide. Over at Tollsbury, there's some beautiful spots.
Okay.
And and it's just a joy. Even the car journey is part of the joy. Like if we're driving over to Tollsbury, it takes 40 minutes. You get there, it's freezing cold. Have a quick dip, have a nice hot tea, and honestly, that will give me the buzz for the rest of the day.
Okay.
It's incredible. And then I got a pod at home as well, and those cold pods.
You do it at home as well?
Yeah, I do that at home as well. So I have a little 5-minute dunk in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So come on. So the morning you've had a walk or a swim?
A swim or a dunk or a walk. And then I really just start thinking about what my to-do list is and working on my plan for the day. I sometimes work as a fractional brand and marketing manager. So that is like hand-holding a brand through brand management, basically, but on a fractional point of view. So that means like I'm part-time. It's not such a significant cost to the business to take on a full-time brand manager then. So then with those sort of projects, how they typically start is I really get under the skin of their brands. I'll start with like an audit, reviewing their brands. I'll look at their category, their competitors, their consumer, any relevant trends, which we can hook onto. And then thinking about it might be about reviewing their brand positioning. Some of the clients I work with have already got brand positioning. It will just be about reflecting on that based on what I've learned from my review and research. And then thinking about sort of marketing plans and brand plans. If that's creative, it might be creative brand development.
And so are they very separate things? Is there a separate thing that this is you're building a brand, and then this is marketing? I mean, I'm sure they do meet, but they are very separate items, aren't they?
Yeah, I think so. I'd say from when I was in design agency world and brand agency world, it would go up to the point of you've delivered the brand. You've got, sometimes we do a little bit of marketing, but not a great deal. It was you deliver the brand, you've done all the brand positioning work. You've packaged it all up. You've got your nice brand guidelines. You've shown how it works. You've expressed it across like what it might look on social media, maybe Vans or, any sort of marketing material, but you're not actually doing the marketing.
No.
So the marketing part I've learned probably in the last 10 years, and that's kind of on the job. And I had a bit of a feel for marketing anyway. And I think so it's just been self-taught really as well. And
you're currently, and that's how I sort of, I mean, we live very close together in the same village, but I that's how I sort of really hooked back into you. Your social media came up, and you're obviously building your personal brand. And if you've not seen it, look up Sarah's brand. What were you under? What is it under?
Sara Kelly Brands is my Instagram.
Right, so Sara Kelly Brands. Look it up on Instagram. It is a great watch. You're very good. I get energised on all the stuff you do. So I'm really enjoying that. But how is that going? How is the personal brand for delivery to customers?
Yeah, I was just actually did a post about that only a couple of days ago because I'm working my personal brand. I'm working on my website at the minute, which I've not really ever needed, which has been very lucky again because, I've got a lot of my work is on Instagram, so you can see examples of my work. And but I feel like now is the time, it's a difficult time, market at the minute, it's more competitive. And I feel it's necessary to work on my brand and really communicate what sets me apart. And even from being in my design agency days, like every few years, the senior management would go like, we need a rebrand. And you're like, oh my God, this is going to take like 3 or 4 years before, and everyone's going to be involved. We'll sit in tons of meetings and then maybe it might change a tiny bit. Right. It's always the hardest to do personal branding for yourself, I think, because it's great doing it for other people, but actually thinking about yourself and how you want to position yourself is
don't
really...
you find that you get in the way a bit?
Yeah, you do. Yeah. Totally. You kind of need an outsider to say, oh, this is what I think you are. Yeah. And I do. I always say I don't work in silo, because I've got my dad, my husband works in advertising, my brother's creative as well. I seek input from other people, and I work with a lot of other solo entrepreneurs, and I seek their advice as well and input. But
I think it is I'm going to go to something that we that was difficult, and especially with you sitting here doing the pod with me. We asked you to do a project for us a few years ago when we were setting up the wedding venue.
Yeah.
And what actually ended up happening, and I want to dive into this with you to see how you get round that, and if it is an obstacle, was you were an individual coming in and pitching, and in the end we went for a company with a team, and that's where we went with the money. Yeah. Now, is that a common problem? What happens with that?
No, actually, it's not often.
It could just be me.
I think a lot of the time as well, because I work with smaller businesses now rather than the bigger businesses I worked with in design agencies. They might have aspirations to work with a design agency, but the fees, having that whole team money. And those overheads. Yeah. And then I would say, I am bringing that level of expertise which you can get from a design agency. I've got a network of brilliant freelancers. A lot of design agencies work with a lot of freelancers. Yeah. And I know those freelancers. I can bring you in the senior talent, and you're not going to pay the agency overheads on top of that. Yeah. So I've got a really trusted network of designers designers, marketeers, copywriters I've worked with for years.
I found that when we've been, and since we've had say 3 or 4 years of these 2 agencies have done work for us, I feel sometimes my feelings feel that I'm part of a trawling machine, and I'm not being cared for and individually handheld and looked after, because I'm part of a bigger sort of conglomerate of a lot of customers. Yeah. And I think sometimes I would prefer to be sort of looked after individually by one person.
And I work with 2 to 3 clients at any one time. Right. So, and they get me. Yeah. That's it. I'm the consistent. I know their brand inside out. I've done the audit. I've done the research. Yeah. And sometimes sometimes you might not get on, or you'll have a challenge. But I think that's what's important, isn't it? To then they don't want you to just be a yes man. You need to challenge. Yeah. Thinking and really push the brand. So but I'm generally a nice person. I'm quite.
And you will commonly work for anybody, won't you?
Commonly work for anyone.
I'll let you into a secret that Sarah, back in the day, used to work for the gangsters. She was a gangster's mole. We've really done some research here. She just worked for anybody. She just worked for gangsters, villains. They're dead. The person that she worked for is dead now.
Oh my God, John Palmer, is that what you're talking
That's the story.
about?
What's the story?
Did I tell you that story, or did you do the research?
Our researchers have worked. Yeah, multiple researchers.
Oh my God.
Well done, Ollie.
That's my party story.
Come on.
When I was in between, after I'd left, actually that was one of the first jobs out after school. After I'd finished my A-levels, I think I joined this temping agency, and they were like, "Oh, we've got a job at Tenerife Tourism in just off Brentwood High Street," and went along there, had a lovely time with a group of girls in this office, and it was timeshares. And we were supposed to be sort of coordinating the timeshares from Tenerife, and there was a team in Tenerife, and they'd be in touch with us, and we'd have to book these 3-year holiday plans for customers. It was so dodgy, but we were 18 or 19. We didn't know what we were doing, and we were just having a laugh. And we'd have customers screaming down the phone at us "We're calling witch," and we're like, God, what are we going to do about that? And they were like, don't worry about it. It's fine. Let them call. And this guy would come in who was, John Palmer, they'd talk like, John's coming in. And he'd walk into the building and with his dark, like he looks proper mafioso with his team around him, pulls up dark Range Rover out the front and he'd come in with his wife, Christina, and it would just be like, right, okay, right, look like you're working, and the whole office would go sort of quiet. And yes, we knew there was an undercurrent of dodginess, definitely, and just in dealing with the customers, it was crazy. And
he was quite famous for that, wasn't he? He got famous for being so blooming dodgy.
He
disappeared apparently. Yeah.
Shot, wasn't he? In his garden in North Weald.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, so that was quite a story. Yeah, so I did used to work for anyone, but I would say those were in my
I meant that years. Very loosely. Anyway, things have changed now because what is the scheme that we read about that was up north? Where were we, Ollie?
Arctic.
So this sounds very interesting. So
this was an incredible project opportunity, and actually came through an old design agency contact who had recommended me to someone else, who'd recommended me to someone else, and then I just got this email through from a designer who I ended up working with. And he just said, I've got this opportunity. I need to partner with a strategist. I'm a designer. There's a gallery which they'd like to open in the Arctic. It's going to be the northernmost gallery in the world. But it would mean going to the Arctic probably within the next month. And I need a strategist to work with me on this project. Do you want to talk about it and do you want to do it? And I was like, you had me at hello.
Yeah. Oh, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. And I was there in the Arctic within about a couple of weeks. And it's like 3 flights up there. So you go Oslo to Tromsø, and then Tromsø, little flight up to right near the North Pole.
In little dodgy aeroplanes and stuff?
No, actually, it's big commercial. Like they call it a city. So Svalbard is the city in the Arctic. It's got a population, I think, of less than 3,000. And it's like an incredible place, like these really hardy locals. If people live there, you can't have any sort of illness or disability to live there because there is no access to
to help
you need to be hardy.
Yeah.
You get the sunlight through 6 months of the year, and darkness through the other half of the year.
Wow.
So it's just, you're surrounded like polar bears. While we were there, Ben, the designer I was working with, we would just be petrified of bumping into a polar bear. And they're like, no, it doesn't happen. There'll be a siren going off. And we're walking over like this mountain range because they wanted to show us and get us the experience of being there before the darkness went. Before the light went. So it was still just glimmers of light, and it's like these candy floss coloured skies. It was just incredible. And we'd be walking over like these mountain ranges and just be like, the polar bear could just pop out anywhere. And
did you see polar bears?
No.
Okay.
But they've all got a polar bear story. Everyone you talk to has got a polar bear story, and it's incredible.
And was it a good project?
It was an amazing project creatively, the strategy. So it was all about. And so they'd had a gallery in this city. They call it a city of 3,000 people. They've got all these amazing amenities in this tiny place when people shouldn't even be.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And and they'd had this gallery. It had fallen by the wayside. No one really visited it, and they wanted to do it properly this time. Norway spends a lot of money on culture, arts and culture. So they had all this investment from Oslo to spend in the Arctic. And so they really wanted to do the strategy right, and they pitched it out. Ben and I won the project over design agencies, so we pitched against design agencies, and the two of us won it. We worked on sort of strategy, and we did lots of research talking to locals and really and doing all these visits and understanding what happens in the Arctic and what makes it so special and important. And one of the things we found was about this story about motion and movement, and it's always a place in constant change, and it's not just about the people moving, so people typically only live there for about 5 years on average, but it's also about the changes in the environment and what's happening in the Arctic. It's the place heating up more quicker than anywhere else in the world, and they can see visibly the changes to the environment. They only have to look at a photo from 3 years versus now and what has changed. And so that importance of education around motion and movement, so that became the whole strategy.
That was the strategy.
And it
being the most northern gallery.
Yeah. And then the name, so we had to create the name as well. So I did a naming workshop for them, brought in lots of stakeholders to that. And we created the name Nordover, which means to journey north, which is lovely because it's like the northernmost place in the world. So it's a beautiful place because Norway, Scandos just have such a beautiful design aesthetic. It's just been done beautifully. Yeah. So it's been, I think they launched in 22, so it's going strong. I think it's like the community love it. So it's done brilliantly.
And what are you looking at for the future? You're obviously building up your personal brand. What's it look like in 3 years for you? Where are you going with things?
I think having been through what I've been through with breast cancer, I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to, my mental health and physical health is probably the most important thing to me now, and joy of life. So I want to work. I want to work with 2 to 3 great clients at a time. Yeah. And I want to do rewarding work, which makes a difference. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a charity, but it just feels like it's giving something back, or just having an impact, in whatever way that is. Yeah,
I think that the when you get these full stops in your life, like you've had sort of 1, 2, 3, 3 of them really, with mum, you losing mum and everything else. It is like your values change, totally. Your view of what you want to tolerate and not tolerate. My poor loving secretary, Christina, who's looked after me for years and years, has just gone through a very similar thing that you have. I know her changes. She just doesn't tolerate stuff anymore, and she also says, "No, I'm not going to do that." No, and she's just changed it, and for the better, by the way. And it definitely is a jolt to the system.
It really is a jolt, and it's in some ways, I don't know. Did the universe give me that to give that jolt? I don't know, because I feel like a changed person because of it, and a better person because of it, and just such an appreciation for life and people, and just.
And if someone's listening and they need help and stuff like this for them bringing a product or service to the market, what's your tips and flicks? How should they sort of go about it without spending all the money in the wrong place, or without just selling yourself? What should they really style and look for
if they're just starting out to bring a product to the market or a service to the market? I think they need to do the research, understand who their competitors are, understand the category, find that gap and really hone in on that gap, and and really define what it is which sets you apart from the competitors. And that can be, again, doesn't necessarily need to, as we talked about, like the Coca-Cola and Pepsi example again, it doesn't have to be that you're a different product, or you don't have to formulate your product or your service to be different, but what is it emotionally? What is the customer? What do you know about your customers? Why do they need your service? What makes you different? And really focus on defining that and setting your values, being really clear on what your benefits and features and benefits of your service or product is, and then thinking about what else, like reason to believe, your USP, all of those sort of things which make up that. And then building from there is thinking about creativity. And you don't have to spend a fortune these days to do brand development. I have never designed a website before. I've just built one in the last 3 days on Squarespace for myself. It's not quite ready, but it's getting there. There are amazing tools now creatively to help create amazing assets as well. So once you've done that work is thinking about sort of how you want to visually represent your brand, but also it's not difficult to get a good designer to work on it too.
I commonly will talk about getting somebody in that's got that 10,000 hours of expertise to hold your hand and go through things, because I think that their insight and when they've done the walk in that area ahead of you, as entrepreneurs, that mainly the viewers of this podcast they are looking to get forward quicker. And I say that you need to probably get some recommendations of subcontractors that you're going to use, and trying to even ask for some customers' reviews and stuff like that, so you can see that people were happy and the stuff was delivered on time. But it takes time. The little I know about brand, really what I've ever done is with the wedding venue here, but that was we went through, is it the pile of bricks? Is it the location? And do you know what it really came down to? It came down to the team.
Yeah.
And that's what the pastoral care that you don't get anywhere else. You can't get eggs for eggs on another wedding menu because you don't get our team.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time and money on making sure teams are very tight. They've got a community about them. They've got training that happens sort of every fortnight to bring new members on and refresh old members. So all of that works. And that is now what we promote more about that particular business.
Yeah.
But it took us Sarah, it probably took us 3 years to learn that.
Yeah.
That was what the hook was.
And I would say even just being here today, like it's years since I was last here, but just it feels like it's evolved as well.
Yeah.
And that's what brands naturally do. Like
Yeah.
the gardens have matured. Like it's, you know, the gardens weren't necessarily as much of a feature as what they are now. It's
right.
it's just, you know, and that is the evolution of the brand. That's the crafting.
And our brand is a hard thing because our brand's a fickle thing for people because we don't retain a customer. It's not like we get a lifetime customer hooked into us that wants to use us all the time. So we do a lot of work with the guests. We make sure they have an even, you know, leveled experience than the bride and groom because they are going to be our chatterbox and they probably might be our future customers. What is the thing that's most exciting technology-wise with brands? What we're looking at there? We talk about AI.
I think AI is exciting.
Is it going to take over everything? Does your
don't
job
think it will.
exist in the future?
I think it will enable.
Enable.
I hope it doesn't mean my job doesn't exist because I like my job. But, you know, I think there is a fear at the moment about that. And I think that's natural. I mean, for copywriters and things like that, it's scary times.
Scary, yeah.
But, you know, I think from what I use AI regularly. And just in terms of like thinking about, you know, even straplines, messaging, you know, if you're developing features and benefits, I'll write all up a copy if I need it grammatically checked. You know, it's time saving. It's a support tool, and it's incredible, you know. And my brother works as a creative wrangler as well, and he, you know, like when he's developing concepts or even building concepts and visuals.
What is a developing wrangler? What is that?
Sorry. When he works for Wrangler Jeans.
Oh, for Wrangler Jeans. I thought you meant he was out there getting stuff.
No. So he's a creative director for Wrangler Jeans. So if he's developing concepts for where they're going to take their brand, you know, he'll potentially use a bit of AI to sort of craft those concepts. And again, it's just incredible time saving, and you know, and just it's a support tool really. So I think it's in branding, it's really useful. And I think again, if we're talking about those small businesses, when you're thinking about like doing that research and even thinking about your competitors, your category, you know, you can ask AI all of that and get all of that intel. Yes, you're going to still have to trawl through it, and you're still going to have to do the work to define your niche and where you're positioned. You know, it's not going to give you all the answers, and I wouldn't rely on it to do that. It needs a human touch, but it's going to give you the information to help you do that.
And you touched on it earlier that they're saying we're doing a rebranding, and everybody sort of is in fear. I always remember watching the AA do a rebrand. So the AA,
do
the roadside thing. And really all that happened was they slanted the A's like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all, and they might have changed the font to a little bit of a sharper corner to it, but that was kind of it. And there was a bit of a swish where normally there was a line.
Yeah.
And that was it. But I actually knew someone that was involved in it. It was millions.
Yeah.
I mean, millions and millions to come to that conclusion, to do that. Dad was all things, when I've spoken to Dad, Bernie was really into the mock-up of bottles and booze brands and stuff like that.
Whiskey.
I mean, he's done some real big names, hasn't he? Like Peroni was his, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That sort of sex on the bottle, wasn't it? That was the.
But but even those little details, you know, like again with the AA. So it does feel like if you just look at the logo, but what was the work which went into that behind the scenes? What was the messaging? I'm sure there was some strategic work.
I would imagine it just meant the thing was on the move. Yeah. You know, because it was. And
for me, that seems actually there's something quite clever about that.
Is,
you know, but I'm sure there was some work, lots of stage work which got to
behind
that.
the scene,
And probably, you know, it's not it. While that's what you're seeing as a visual representation, what have they changed on their website? What are they doing in their marketing to communicate that movement, or like that little bit of energy which they're put into there, which we're not necessarily seeing.
Sarah, we've gone very brave. We had a poor time about 18 months ago with sales. It just wasn't coming together, and I think people were nervous with the change of government. Interest rates were high, and we were struggling to get, you know, our wedding venues off on the upper end. It was quite a lot of money for people to spend, and we lent into that and went down the road of doing pay-per-click, and we went through the whole SEO and really getting it to work. We had to completely rebuild our website to make that work. So the two things would talk to one another. Was the best thing we ever did.
Wow.
It gives us more choice now with customers because we're getting more volume through.
Yeah.
But it's taken, even when we've done that, it must have taken 8 months to really get that to work properly.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of business owners, are they prepared to lean in with that much money and that much time to see the results and trust the agencies or the subcontractors that they are going to get it right?
And I think that's often the thing with brand founders, you know, is they're investing a lot of money. They're desperate to make it work, you know, and they just want quick results. And unfortunately, a lot of the time it isn't quick like that, and it does take time. And, you know, I've seen that with clients as well, where they've given it like 3 months and they're like, well, this isn't enough, you know. And
where's the spreadsheet? Where's the numbers?
Those 3 months, you can just see it starting to turn, but it's just then they can't give it that time. And it is difficult, but I think it does need that time.
And that was the best investment. I mean, we probably invested over £60,000 to bring all that together and to go through the timeline. And we're spending $5,000 a month doing that now. I'm very happy to, because we know that works. And that brings us, you know, that's their main advertising budget goes into that, but that brings us, all that marketing brings us through those customers.
And do you do advertise as well, like meta ads or anything?
We
like
do
that?
a bit of that. We do the social medias, and one's an ambient customer that you might catch, and the other one is a hunting customer with the sponsored ads. But that brings us a good quality customer, and then when we get them here, we make sure we nurture the customer, and they have time to do a proper visit. They have very private visits. They don't have we used to do open days. We don't do so much of that now because we want to actually, you know, give them time to look around and be personal. But I think that it intrigues me, and your world is a completely different world that I touch on, but I don't get involved with. I think today, for people watching, you know, you've always got to go to where people have done the work and been in the business to give you that sort of foot up to making things really work. And
there's another thing, just when you're talking about sort of what's happening in industry as well, there's the shop, they're nicknaming it Shop GBT now. So that actually when you search using Chat GBT, that it's going to give you brand recommendations as well, which they're saying is huge. And also just thinking then, like, are we going to move away from Google? So what's the next step there for brands? And we need to be thinking and reflecting our website, thinking about how ChatGPT is going to pick up our brands. So that's a really, I think, interesting evolution as well. And I think, you know, people are using, because of how ChatGPT responds, it's more natural, and you know, people ask it for more advice. They're more open with what they ask, and they're getting more personal responses. So how does your brand then feed into that? And that's going to be really important.
And people are resisting about giving so much money to Google, aren't they? They're, you know, because it's hundreds of £1,000s that they come out of their business to that one entity, and it feels a bit handcuffed into it. And that's very interesting what you're saying there. Ollie, we're going to do a featurette.
Well, before we go into our main feature, I've just noted down a few questions for the pair of you. Well, one of them might not apply to you so much, James, but I thought we could just go through these before we do the main featurettes. My first question, like you talked about personal brands there. So for the pair of you, if you were to come up with 3 words that would represent your personal brand.
My personal brand.
Both of you.
Okay.
What would they be?
This is his moment of power. Against us.
God. Okay.
3 words.
3 words.
God.
Do you want to go first?
No, you'll go fine. Be my guest.
I'm going to use the word meaningful. So that's where I'm, if I'm thinking about where I want, what I want to be my point of difference, it's about doing meaningful work. So that's going to be a key one. Impact, I think, is really important. So how can we make an impact? And all of those things, like be it Google, be it ChatGPT, whatever it is, ads, and how bringing that all together and really doing it succinctly. So that comes to impact. What's the last one? I'm going to go with growth, because personal growth, but then growth of brands, Yeah,
very good.
There we go.
So she's good, isn't she? No pressure.
Now for you, James.
I think I want to be known as transparent. I'm very transparent with what I say and do, and probably to the detriment of me sometimes that I'll stick my whole mouth in. Transparency, I would say I'm a doer. I'd like to see things get done. I'm a short attention span to let things carry on and excuse-itis and they didn't get that done. Well, let's just phone them up, find out if they want it. If they don't want it, then we can move on and start something else. So I think being a doer, and that falls into line of action. So that's the same word, but gorgeous. There you go.
Yeah,
gorgeous.
Sure.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Cool. Okay, my next question is there a brand that you really love and why?
Yeah, a brand I really love. I've been watching a brand build, and I'm very, they're called the Newt in Somerset, and they've been building this brand up, and they're a new sort of a luxury estate.
Yeah,
have you heard?
Yeah,
of it?
yeah, it's beautiful.
And I've been there a couple of times, and it comes on my feed. They do a very good job. It's very wholesome. It's all about the garden team. It's about no chemicals and stuff they use on their planting and stuff like that. It's right up my alley because of all my arboricultural background, and I enjoy seeing that come across my feed. I really like it. The Newt at Somerset. So look it up, guys, if you've not seen there, and go and stay there. It's the best.
Yeah. Okay, mine's a bit different. My brands I love changes all the time, just because I think how they evolve. But the one I love at the minute, and actually I've been doing some work with them as well, is Boost Innovations. So they provide prosthetics for women who've had mastectomy, and it's very different to general prosthetics, which I don't know if you've ever seen a prosthetic breast.
No.
But they're made of silicone. They're hot and sweaty. They're heavy. They're not very comfortable. But what these ones are is they're made of sort of silicone, and they've got holes in them. They're designed. They've got a lotus flower design on them, so you can use them for swimming. So it would be practically impossible to swim with the standard prosthetics. And so they've done loads of innovation. It's just a incredible product, and it's really meaningful. So that's one I love.
I like that. Yeah. That's very on point. Yeah, cool.
And then my final question is there a business that you would really love to create a brand for?
A business I'd love to create a brand.
This obviously isn't for me.
This one's not for you.
No,
oh God, hang
pressure,
on.
Sarah.
Oh jeez. Oh, I know. So I'm Irish descent. I love Ireland. It's like another top of my favourite things. I would love to work on an Irish brand, which is again doing something different. There's a brand in Ireland. I've actually been just doing some research on Irish brands. So these are potentially ones I want to target, and just thinking about. So again, I'd love to do FMCG because that's fast moving consumer goods. I've done a lot of FMCG work. So something Irish based, FMCG, something wholesome, something maybe potentially plant based or natural, and giving something back.
What is FMCG?
Fast moving consumer goods.
Okay.
So that is basically anything on a supermarket shelf.
Okay.
So like, again, going back to that, and that's where my experience comes from, I think.
And this is all about the
agency.
Grabbable placement, all those things that go with it.
Yeah, and I think that's what my dad's agencies did. So that's like the King's Mill and the Heinz, those products and brands. But there's so many like little beautiful crafted brands now, and they're fantastic, but there are plenty out there as well who need a bit of a helping hand. Yeah. So that's what I'm on the lookout for.
I'm going to tell you a story. I've just come to mind that my uncle Don Sinclair used to work for a big agency. This is a long time ago.
He sounds like an ad agency.
Yeah, no, he was
person,
Don Sinclair. He was a great guy, and he came up with the Lemsip ad, where it was the lemon that was cut off. And they put a blob of honey, then you put the lemon back on, then the tablet, and he came up with all these ideas. He created the Easter egg box way back, like the actual fold-out box and stuff like that. Anyway, a long story short, because he was so artistic and he had all this stuff going on, he got sacked from the agency, but went to work on the train for 2 years without telling his wife.
Wow.
And went and sat on a bench and drew. And he drew all of these beautiful, artwork. And then he started selling them on the railings at one of the parks in London.
Oh.
And he was actually making more money from these sketches than he was. And she didn't know for 2 years. And then because he was still feeding the house with money and stuff like that. But he'd actually lost his main job, was in the agency. But Don's dead now, bless him. But he was so creative. And back in the day when I first started my grass cutting thing up, I was telling him at some family gathering, and he drew me an ad, with all the wow PowerPoints of what we should. And I took that into the Yellow Advertiser, the local rag, to get some. And I go to them and went, oh, this is very good. Who does this? And they published that for me for probably 3 years. It was the same ad, and he drew that ad for me. So little storiette.
Yeah, that's a great story.
On point for the pod today.
Very
all things
on point.
marketing, advertising.
Yeah.
So what else? What else are we doing?
Cool. So that's the end of my questions.
Yeah.
And our featurette is, what are we dyslexically reading?
We are dyslexically listening to. Do you want to go first? Or what are you doing?
I actually brought my book with me, which is this saw me through a really difficult time. Nikki Banas, Along the Way, and it's a collection of letters for the journey. So it's a little bit like that Matt Haig quote, and there's just beautiful things, and how she writes is just these short letters, and it always starts with like, my beautiful friend, or it just feels like it's talking to you, and it's just incredibly soothing.
Show it again so everybody can see this.
Is it on?
It's this one.
That one. Oh.
Does she do it in audio?
Don't know. Good question.
I can look it up, or I can actually download them and then put the scroll on it, and it will actually read it to me.
Yeah.
But you don't get an author's voice or a narrator's voice.
Yeah.
You get
No, that's not. It's not going to be quite the same.
Yeah.
I mean, just one here, like, you will rise, my sweet friend. I promise you will. And there's just little things like that.
Nice,
it's just so soothing.
Yeah, I like that. I've gone for a classic, and I just so happened to have the book here that I didn't for an hour ago when I got it from the car. But I was doing some work with a masterclass yesterday, and they said you could take a book, and I have Audible read this, but this is a great author because she did The Secret, and then this is the second. I think this is the second one that she did. Was Magic.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, and this is, we talk about it. How do you feel about this, The Secret, when they're talking about this?
I love this.
And would you use this in your world?
Yeah, and I think having been through what I've been through, I'm a bit of a believer. I've gone a bit airy-fairy and universal energy, and manifesting.
Sarah, I'm with you. I have for a long time. Manifesting is it. And
Yeah.
I think I used to do that before I read that.
Yeah.
But that just made me understand it in a better way.
And I think, I'm not saying that you don't have to do the hustle still, but like thinking about what you want to work on, and what, like that question before of what is the project I want to work on, and actually putting it out into the universe of this is what I want to do, or and like with brands, putting out into the world of these are who I want my consumers to be. This is my brand. Then that's how you attract.
And that walk or that swim, and I try and do a walk every morning. I will I'm the nutter in Highlands Park, looking up into the nice clouds and saying, I need you to hold my hand this week. You've got a lot on, and I see myself getting this win. I see myself doing this. I see myself helping that person, and I need you to hold my hand and help me. And we're going to do this at the end of the week. I want to look back and see that we achieved together what we want to do.
100%.
And voodoo, woo woo, whatever you want to call it. Read that. It's a good book, and it will give you some structure to having a different approach to how you run your daily life and how you ask for things to. And I'm not religious at all, but
Yeah.
you know, energy in the universe, I definitely believe in, and that does work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay, well, I have had a great time, and I do really appreciate you spending the time to come over to see us.
Oh, I've loved
and,
it.
And I
Thank
think
you.
the audience, I hope you've enjoyed it. It's given you a slightly different thing than what we normally do here, but Sarah is a great personality with a great story, and I think from that, you know, anything that you want to look at, marketing and branding. I think branding is something that people don't spend enough time considering, and they need to consider it. And it's also about the changes of what we're going to do. If you're not innovating with your products, your branding, your marketing, you will evaporate. So you need to make sure you're doing all those good things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.